Hi, my name is René Jurgensen. I have studied near-death experiences for more than 10 years and I'm a member of the International Association for Near-Death Studies. In response to this very inspiring and touching video posted by Ben Breedlove's family, I would like to clarify a couple of points about the near-death experience that Ben is describing to us. First, however, though, I'd like to give my condolences to his family and also say that what I'm trying to argue is that Ben is truly in a much better place, a heavenly place, as he describes in his near-death experience. First, Ben makes a really important point about death, that we don't need to be scared, and this is something we really see in a majority of the near-death research. We find that by far most people who have these experiences of coming close to death and then having these experiences of seeing a bright light, which happens to about 70% of people who have near-death experiences. By far the majority of these people, they will say that it's a truly pleasurable and very peaceful and joyful experience. If we look at polls, some polls estimate that up to 13 million Americans have had a near-death experience. And that means approximately 800 Americans have a near-death experience each day. So this is really an event, an experience that occurs very often. And if we see, Ben tries to explain in the video that the mind still works even though the heart has stopped beating. And this is true, even though this is only for a very short period of time. Actually, what happens after cardiac arrest is that in a short time period of a mean of 15 seconds, this is between 10 and 20 seconds, the blood flow to the brain stops completely and there's no longer any oxygen in the brain to produce conscious experience. This means after the time period of 20 seconds, the brain basically no longer functions. It cannot produce conscious experience. So therefore, of course, it's interesting when Ben described to us that he was actually dead for 3 minutes. This is of course longer than the 20 seconds, and this is also one of the most interesting things we find in near-death research, which is that some people are clinically dead for up to 55 minutes and they're able to describe events, observing events, let's say in the operating theater, clearly past the time frame of 20 seconds. So this really is evidence to us when we afterwards can objectively verify that these observations that happened after the 20 seconds are real and actually occurred. When we can verify these experiences, this is experimental evidence that suggests that these experiences actually occur when the brain is not working. And that is really one of the most interesting pieces of evidence we have from near-death research, because this suggests that the consciousness actually can operate outside the brain, or that meaning without the brain. And that's what makes near-death research so interesting, because this would suggest an afterlife, exactly as Ben is explaining to us here. Of course, the debate is still unsettled, and a lot of scientists are not disagreeing. But what we have is a lot of testimonies from thousands and thousands of people, just like Ben's testimony, who all say the same. They will tell about this clear, bright light. They will tell about this peace and pleasurable experiences, and they will also go through what's called a life review. Ben talks about it actually in his testimony. He talks about seeing himself in the mirror, and this mirror is actually very much equivalent to what people call a life review. This happens to about 30% of people who have near-death experiences. They will have these life reviews where they go through either pleasurable episodes of their life, like Ben did, or it can also be more distressing episodes. And this of course brings to mind this idea of purgatory, or also heaven and hell that we find in religion. And some parallels can actually be drawn to these religious concepts. And then we also find one of the most interesting things that Ben reveals to us is that he actually didn't want to return. I think this was in his third near-death experience, the third and the last time he cheated death. And he actually tells us that he didn't want to return because the experience was so pleasurable and so joyful that he didn't want to come back. And this is also a general conclusion from thousands and thousands of near-death experiences, that by far the majority of people, they don't want to come back to this world. They tell us just like Ben, that on the other side, this light, this love, this joy, this peace is so much greater than anything we can comprehend. It's actually multiplied. In my own research, I ask people, what is the sensation like when you're in this experience? And people say it is 100 times or even 1,000 times stronger than anything we can imagine here on earth. So if we take peace, joy, and love and multiply it 1,000 times, then we can try to imagine what it's like to be on the other side, to be in this bright light that Ben describes to us. And it's really very powerful, very strong. And that's why people, they don't want to come back. So basically what we can take from Ben's testimony is that it is supported by more than 30 years of NDE research. Myself, I have done over 10 years, and I have seen many testimonies that are exactly the same as Ben. So what he described to us is what most people go through. And we are talking about millions of people all over the world, in all cultures and all countries, basically. So what we can conclude is that Ben right now, he is probably in this light, in this heavenly pleasurable light, and having a very nice experience with his guide. We call, he talks about the only person he met was the rapper kid, the Kuri, on the other side. And basically this is another phenomenon in the NDE research where we find that either relatives or also religious figures or other person that have been meaningful to that person who's going to the other side, they will meet people on the other side and act as a form of guide. And so these guides are in a way directing and leading people through the experience. And that is probably the same thing that happened to Ben that he describes to us. And it's very likely, at least it's supported by scientific studies of near-death experiences that strongly suggest that near-death experiences are not hallucinations. They are not some creation of the mind, because the experience happens when the mind is not functioning. Therefore, the evidence quite strongly suggests that there really is an afterlife, just as Ben tells us he believes in. And I would definitely confirm his testimony that I believe he is there right now, and I really hope for him he's having a pleasurable and heavenly experience in that place he told us in his last experience that he didn't want to return from. So I wish him all well, and I pray for him, and I wish his family all the best. Thank you.